Steve, let's talk about it. What an exciting time it's been in the last number of months in Kansas City. Now you have the final. You're getting ready to take on, for me anyway, the surprise team of the year, Real Salt Lake. And it started by you guys taking out the finalist, Houston Dynamo. I got to tell you, one guy that really stuck out for me, and I think this guy doesn't get enough respect, and I think this guy should fit on the bench as a role player under Jurgen Klinsmann's Team USA team, and that is Benny Feilhaber. Talk about him.
Look, the game that Benny had the other night was the kind of game that Sporting brought him into half. He just absolutely dominated. Houston was without Ricardo Clark in the midfield. That's granted, but good teams know how to exploit when other good teams have somebody missing. Benny was spot on with his passes. He was up in the attack. He was tracking back to defend. The assist that he made to set up Dom for that winning goal was just fantastic. He was my man of the match for that matter. And at the start of the year, he was not ready for this requirement.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, he's never been capped by Brazil. We know that he was born there, Steve. So is he able to be called up by Jurgen Klinsmann?
Oh, he's played for the national team before here for the U.S.
Well, there you go.
He just hasn't been called in. I think he was called in for earlier this year in the January camp. But he just hasn't figured a lot for the U.S. since Klinsmann came up, and I think he's played himself back into a look. I really do think he's played himself back into a look for the national team.
Oh, absolutely. I think he would be a fantastic role player coming off the bench to give a spark when needed. Let's talk about a guy who I didn't think would get the start, but he did, CJ Sapong. Why did he get the start over Teal Bunbury?
They've got CJ playing more of a wing role now. Teal's pretty much still a pure striker, but CJ's moved outside where he can kind of break guys down with his strong runs into the box. Again, he would have had two the other night for a little bit of a deflection that Sartori got on one of the crosses, threw him off just a bit. But CJ he really can break down and break people down and draw a lot of attention in the penalty area, both to draw people to him and maybe to draw some fouls close to the area. He's just a big, strong guy who's still figuring out just how big and strong he is, and he really made that payoff the other night, breaking in for the gift goal, and he nearly got the brace in the first half stoppage time.
And CJ's greatest aspect of his game is his speed. I think his speed is going to work wonders in that final against Real Salt Lake. It's going to cause a lot of havoc on that back four of Real Salt Lake.
Yeah, that's what Peter is so along. CJ is really, he hasn't figured out just how dominant he can be. He can be a nightmare for a back line because he's big and he's strong and he's fast, and he can get in and he can force people to foul him. He can get up in the air. You saw what he did with his feet the other night, coming in to put that ball back in the net after Boswell misplayed it. So if he gets in a groove and figures out just how good he can be, he can really be scary.
Not because it's Kansas City, and we're talking about Kansas City with you right now, but being objective and honest about this, I don't think there's a better back four, Steve, right now in MLS than Myers, Colin, Beeler, and Seth Senovic. I think these four right now in their position are bar none the best. If you can find me another three or four, then let me know.
I think with the thing with those four is that they've played together for the last 3 years now, and they've got the chemistry down. Seth Senovic and Chance Myers are very good at getting up into the attack, knowing when the other needs to sort of hang back and when one needs to get up and run. They've got that fullback dynamic figured out. Beasler and Colin are the same way. Beasler's more the guy who's the anchor. Colin is the guy who gets up, goes into the attack, and can come back and make some recoveries if something happens up front. He gets to be calm because Beasler is Beasler. And then you throw in a guy like Iko Parra into the mix. And you notice what they've been doing late in matches. They've been throwing Iko Parra out there as sort of that destroyer, sweeper type in front of the back four to give them that extra big defensive presence. When I'm at the Sporting Kansas City, I don't see a center back tandem. I see a triad. Now they've been going with Beasler and Colin, but Opara has just been a tremendous, outstanding addition to that defense this year.
Now, you might think I'm crazy, Steve, but I know that Dwyer scored the winner, but I'm not sold on this guy yet. Sell me on this guy.
What I will tell you on is the way that he has you saw what he did in USL Pro, and everybody said, "Oh, he can't replicate that in Kansas City." He has had some moments when he's been pressing, and he has had a tendency sometimes to try to overdrive the ball in the penalty area, sell a penalty, and go that route. But Peter likes his willingness to dribble in the penalty area and to try to get in and draw something, make something happen. That's one of the reasons that he's high on him. The other was that finish that he showed what he's capable of with that finish against Houston. The first touch to settle that ball, the second to cut himself clear, and the third to put that ball where Tally Hall had absolutely no chance of making a save. It was a clinical finish, a finish that showed what can happen if he becomes a patient guy up front. He's got loads of upside. He's not a tall guy. That's one of the potential drawbacks. But he's got a tremendous engine. He's hungry for the goal, and if he starts getting on a roll for his scoring, his confidence shoots through the roof. And I think he can put up some really solid numbers goal scoring next year if he gets that chance.
Steve, going into the final against Real Salt Lake, I look at the bench of Sporting Kansas City, and there's no comparison whatsoever. This bench of players that they got, Teal Bunbury, Jacob Peterson, Claudio Bieler, Ike Opara, this bench can start for 3/4 of the teams in MLS. This is going to be their strength, I believe, in the final.
I think so. You look what kind of the setup they've got now. They're thin in the midfield right now because of some injury, and might be getting Lawrence Allen back for the final. We're not sure yet. Peter said he might be out training in preparation for the final. We're not sure about that yet. But you look at the bench, and it's forwards and it's back line guys. And yeah, you look at the forwards that he can bring on. You look at Sunny Saad. You look at Claudio Bieler. He's a DP, and he's coming off the bench. You look at Teal. Jacob Peterson I think Jacob's role is maybe adjusting to sort of a defensive winger. You know, the kind of guy who can high press and just wreck teams in their own third just by going after the ball, pressuring him into mistakes. But yeah, he's got plenty of really good, solid guys that he can bring in to make an impact in that MLS final match.
Now, is it safe to say, Steve, that it's over and done with against Houston? Let's now focus on Real Salt Lake. Is that what the coaching staff is telling the players as of this morning?
Oh, absolutely. They've achieved part of what they wanted to do. They wanted to get to the MLS Cup final. But the way the Champions League, especially now, is shaking out with U.S. Soccer, they've got to win the whole thing to make the Champions League now. And yeah, they're not looking back. They enjoyed the win. You saw how they celebrated, but they've got a mission. They want to win that. They haven't won an MLS Cup in the city since 2000, and that's not only an MLS Cup. They haven't won a major team championship in this city since 2000. So Kansas City is starved for a title, and Sporting really want to give the city that title. I mean, it's not a cliche. It's not a mistake to say that the Sporting they're so fan driven and they're so city driven. They want to bring a title not just to Sporting Kansas City, but to Kansas City as a whole.
But not only that, Steve, they play an entertaining brand of footy that we enjoy to watch. It's not the kick and run. It's a build-up. It's not the fluky goal. It's a wonderful goal. It's not 10%. It's 100% they give you. So this is what you want to see from your champion in your league. Is a team like Sporting Kansas City playing the game completely?
That's one of the things that Peter says. We want to be entertaining. They want to play entertaining, attractive soccer. Now, in a final, sometimes it's a little more difficult to do because nobody wants to make that mistake that puts you on your heels in a final. That's one match, you're done. There's no recovery from a loss in a final. So there may be a little less pretty and a little more gritty in the final because sometimes that's what it takes to win the cup. You look at, it's obviously a different coach, but Peter Vermees was on that team in 2000 when they won it. They had a guy named Miklos Molnar who could just score out. He could score pretty goals, and he could score just absolutely. You don't know how it went in garbage goals. The winning goal in that 2000 MLS Cup was a toe poke that I think had bug splats on the backside of it because it was moving so slowly across the goal line. But it went in, they locked down the defense, and they came away with a win. Mill had a monster day that day. The defense came up big that day. It's going to take an effort at both ends of the pitch, and it's going to take a spectacular defensive effort to shut down Salt Lake. And I think that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to lock them down, and they're going to try to do something with the high press to keep the ball in Salt Lake's defensive third, get some mismatches, get that early goal, and then try to add to it. I don't think they're going to try to sit on one. They're going to try to add to it, and then the defense, of course, will just try to keep things locked down.
And I think, Steve, with this Real Salt Lake team that not many people have paid attention to all year, unlike yourself and I, Sporting Kansas City have their hands full. They've got two of the best mids in the game, Kyle Beckerman, who we know all about, but let's not forget a hard worker, a guy that knows when he's out there, he's got to give 110% because he doesn't have all that talent. That's Ned Grabavoy.
Okay, yeah, Grabavoy is a hard worker. He's a blue-collar player. And he's the kind of guy who, he doesn't make a lot of splash, but he's solid. And I think he's a guy that is going to be very important to what they're trying to do, especially when you've got Zusi and Benny in the middle of the field. Trying to shut those two guys down, keep them from creating, is going to be a huge task. And I think Grabavoy is going to really have to work pretty hard to do that. But he's got that kind of ethic where he's going to work as hard as it takes to make something good happen.
And two of the best goalies are going to be going up against each other. Jimmy Nielsen, who I don't have enough words to describe what a class act he is on and off the field. And Nick Raimondo, a Team USA third keeper, wants to prove that he belongs as maybe a 1A or even number 2 at Team USA by winning it all.
You know, Nick he's been around. We were talking last night, a friend and I were talking about last night how long he'd been in the league. And he's been in the league seems like forever. And he's still just got this absolutely sick, in every good sense of the word, athleticism that makes up for his lack of size. I mean, there's some balls that he gets to that you're thinking there's no way that he's going to get to. And he makes that cat move, springs and knocks the ball away. He's still tremendously athletic. Jimmy he's not the kind of guy who's going to make the spectacular diving save for the most part. He's a positional guy. He's the guy who's going to be in the good spot to make the stop, not have to make the spectacular stop because he's in a good position and he's got his defense ordered well. But the other thing with Jimmy is and I maintain this for some time now, there's nobody better in the league at stoning somebody on a one-on-one break with a foot save, making his body big, getting his feet and his arms and everything in the way, and just stuffing a guy on a breakaway. We've seen them. How many times have we seen him do that this year? Where you think, okay, this is going in because the guy's one-on-one with Jimmy. Jimmy makes himself big, and the ball. Next thing you know, the ball's bouncing back out the top of the 18 because Jimmy stuffed it. So that's going to be an interesting and I think a really fun goalkeeping match to watch. You've got athleticism on one side and just tremendous positioning on the other. It's going to be a lot of fun to see who blinks first.